People are unaware that HOA fines can lead to the loss of someone's home. I had no idea. Here to talk about it is 9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor. Thanks for coming in.
Sure, it's good to be here.
So how does this happen? How is this even legal?
It's quite bizarre. So really we have to understand kind of how property works. And so when you own property, you own it in, you have title to the property. Well, if somebody has you take a loan out on the property or whatever, they can record that loan and they can record it so that if you don't pay it, they can obviously foreclose. So if you have a loan with Wells Fargo, they'll have a lien. And then if you have a second, they'll have a lien and things like that. Well, what's interesting is with the HOAs, when the HOA sets up, when it's first in place on a house, what they do is they take their declaration, their kind of documents, and they file them with the clerk and recorder. So if you get behind on your HOA fees, on assessments, things like that, it's already in place. So the lien is almost automatic. Whereas usually if you have a debt, then you file the lien. Here, they've already filed their document beforehand, and the law says that's sufficient for a lien. So people don't know, you know, they get behind on their assessments. Right. The document's already filed, and there's already a lien in place.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to kind of get into why we're talking about this with Green Valley Ranch here in a second. But first, you know, during the pandemic, we were talking about how, you know, they couldn't do foreclosures. So how are these continuing to go forward?
That's a great point. It was the judicial foreclosures that were prevented from going forward. So there were foreclosures by the banks and things like that that they said couldn't go forward. This is an HOA lien, so it's an HOA foreclosure, which is different. Now, I did see a statement from the HOA, and they said, we didn't do any foreclosures in 2020, which is true. And you can go online and see their minutes and everything, and I looked at their minutes, but they started doing the foreclosures in September, October, November, December. And so here, for example, this is 7 foreclosures that happened that they agreed to do in September. So they're actually in the minutes where they vote on doing these foreclosures.
This is such a bizarre case. So why were so many of the state's HOA foreclosures concentrated in the Green Valley Ranch area?
Well, that's a great question because last year there were 109 of the HOA foreclosures. 50 of them came from Green Valley Ranch and this specific HOA, which is why now there's politicians saying, hey, we need to look at this and take care of this. And that's really what makes this so egregious, is that these are small issues. There's, you know, a brown patch in the grass, or somebody had their trash cans out too long. Well, if those fines go unpaid, they can ultimately result in a lien. So there's some people who are probably saying, well, just pay your bills, pay your assessments, your fines, and you'll be fine. But the problem is, to me, the punishment doesn't fit the crime, right? When it starts off as one of these fines, sure, this is something that you owe, but then you get the interest, the attorney fees, and all these other things. So something that started out as a few $100s or a few $1,000s ends up being $30,000 or $40,000, leading to somebody losing their home.
You said the penalty doesn't fit the crime, which is really interesting because, of course, this has gotten a lot of attention. Do you foresee any changes when it comes to state law because of what we're seeing?
I think there might be, and it's so, you know, people say there's too much government involvement and things like that, but it's situations where you have these really inequitable results that lead to the need for government getting involved. So I know Stacey Gilmore, the city council president, she's been having meetings. I think Nikita Ricks, she's a state representative, she introduced some legislation. So I know, and in fact, they've asked the governor and Attorney General Phil Weiser to put a moratorium on these specific foreclosure evictions. I don't know what will happen.
HOAs can be such a blessing and such a curse at the same time. Whitney, really appreciate you coming in. I know a lot of people are talking about this.
I was thinking about it and I said, when was the last time you heard somebody say, I love my HOA?
I do love my HOA, but I know I am the minority big time, because most of them not so much.
Right, but and that's what people can do. They can make sure they read their documents, go to the HOA meetings, they can get on the board, they can actually have some influence. But we have such busy lives. This is the last thing we want to do. But honestly, if folks want to get involved, it's easy to do so.
If it's important, you have to get involved. Whitney, thank you.
Sure.